we do have our live stream on, and have the emergency procedures on the screen. So if you could make sure your phone is switched to silent, that would be great. And we'll go to our opening karakia. Whakatakata hau ki te uru, whakatakata hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina kiuta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hi aki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei, mauri ora. Okay, apologies, I believe we've got a full house, which is great. So we will now move through to public comment. We do have some members of the public here to speak, and we also have iwi partners who are allotted a total of 15 minutes under standing orders as well. So first up, we have Kara Puketapu Dentis, Chief Executive of Taranaki Whānui, ki te upu. Matikai. Okay. Welcome, Kara. No stranger to the stable. I'll pass it over to you.
Kia ora mai tātou. First, I just want to say and send my congratulations to the council and the work that you've done over the years in the rebuilding of our Nainai pool. I must say it was a beautiful moment for all of us being there in the opening and the blessing of our marvellous pool, Te Ngaingai. And I think the building itself symbolises this biculturalism wrapped with this multiculturalism, which is the natural fabric of who we are as a nation and as a people. And as we look at that building, we see the identity of Te Ngaingai, we see the identity of that community, and I'm sure the community turned up on Saturday with force and with vigour, just like they did on the opening at ridiculous o'clock in the morning. But that's just how we do things as a nation. And over the years, we've seen it play out, and we've seen the positiveness of it. We've seen the fruits of it. We've seen this little thing called a treaty partnership and a treaty relationship morph from little words on a piece of parchment that was forgotten about into something meaningful, into something impactful, into something that has grown us as a people, as a nation, in what I think is the right way. At the moment, we're having a little bit of a blip, and we're having a little bit of amnesia, or as another term might be, suspended logic within the halls of power. But I think regardless of that, we will still continue, and it's great to see that the fine community of Te Awa Kairangi Tai persists regardless and continues the path. And we're here to say that we're here to stand next to you, alongside you, behind you, in front of you, wherever we need to be, to ensure that we uphold those things which we value as dear and as important to us. I've actually got, with respect to the treaty submission and the notice of motion that's being put, our hope is that a submission is put forward by this council in opposition to the bill. And we think it is very important that you don't just have a stock standard submission as well, that you have your own individual submission. And I actually ask you as individuals, as councillors, to send in your own submissions, as I will be doing. I've drafted a whole number of submissions with various hats on, and I ask the same of you, and I ask the same of others here, and I ask you also to convey that message to others within our community as well. Because we live in a democracy enabled and empowered by a founding document called Te Tiriti. Without that document, we don't have democracy. I'm here today to, I guess, underscore the importance of our founding document, to underscore the importance of our relationship as Taranaki Whānui, as mana whenua, and the council, and to ensure that we continue on this pathway together. Now, I've got a brief synopsis of the 20 reasons why. And these 20 reasons were put forward by one of my whanaunga. 1, the bill undermines the guaranteed sovereignty of Māori, as we all know. It misrepresents the treaty relationship. It was introduced without consultation. Our rights are subordinated to those defined solely by legislation or historical settlements. The exclusion of Māori voices in the bill's development process undermines trust in our goodwill. The bill distorts treaty principles and disregards established legal historical interpretations that reflect the intent of the treaty. The bill contradicts international standards, including the United Nations Declaration of Indigenous Rights of Peoples, of Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It weakens the government's responsibility to safeguard Māori rights and interests. Existing treaty clauses and legislation are weakened and undermined. The treaty is a document of generic, by reframing the treaty as a document of generic equality, the bill disregards the unique status of Māori. The principles introduce legal uncertainty. Again, a whole problem there with, I'm sure lawyers might like that. The bill disregards decades of jurisprudence. The social cohesion of our nation is threatened, as we already have seen. A weakening Māori decision-making rights and abilities. The bill is based on false historical narratives. Progress made in building a constructive and respectful partnership between Māori and Crown is jeopardised. The bill fails to address any clear or urgent policy issues. The new principles could destabilise existing treaty settlements, including our own. The bill poses significant constitutional risks. And then the last point, instead of fostering a meaningful national dialogue, the bill alienates Māori and fails to honour their role as equal treaty partners. And I think another main point here that I want to express is that the relationship is between Māori and the Crown, and that is the founding nature of this relationship. I guess the last point that I just wanted to raise is, and send by acknowledgements to Council and to those who are here today, Wayne and others, with respect of the hikoi on the 19th of November, where we had tens of thousands, if not over 100,000 people turn up to Wellington, to Parliament, to show their disdain, to show their hurt in an honourable and peaceful way. The people from the Hutt turned up, the people from throughout the Motu turned up. And it was an incredible display of unity and of who we are as a country. And yes, we might have clogged the streets of Wellington, and yes, we might have caused a little bit of disruption, but I think it's all for a good cause. And I must also say, it was an amazing day, and I think a few of you were there. I saw Tui. But also, I think the other part of this was the day after, you wouldn't even known that there was 100,000 people that had turned up to our city. That's how respectful, how peaceful, and how important this kaupapa is to all of us. So with that, I just send you my thanks. I send you our support, and I send you our acknowledgements, and I hope that you all unanimously support the submission. And finally, to our mayor and to the leadership team here and the councillors, ka tuku mihi atu kia koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou. And last but not least, to Whaia Liz, tēnā koe te rangatira, ko tai mai marunga i te Zoom I tēnei rangi, ka tuku mihi atu kia koe, tēnā koe, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa, kia ora.
Kia ora, thank you, Kara. Okay, next up we have Liz Mellish representing the Wellington Tents Trust, also speaking to the notice of motion by Councillor Brown. So Liz, great to have you here.
Kia ora, excuse me, just that technical thing of turning sound on and off. Kia ora, Mayor Barry, kia ora, councillors and the staff of Hutt City Council. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity, and I want to tautoko the kōrero of young Kara, and he's encapsulated our thoughts exactly, and that's really good. Of course, the Ahu Whenua Trusts have made a submission, and really we have gone back through the historical jurisprudence that has occurred really to us and since 1840, and it starts off really with the Native Lands Act of 1862 ending with the last act, the Town and Country Planning Act of 1953. So in our submission, we certainly take that journey of how legislation has been used against the traditions of Māori. And it's such a pleasure to be here in 2024, seeing the hikoi and seeing the support from non-Māori right across the country. And I think it wasn't, in the hikoi, it wasn't just Māori, there was people of every ethnicity. I just want to acknowledge a couple of communities you might not have known: the Sikh community, the Muslim community of Wellington, and the Cambodians, who collectively did 3,500 free meals for the participants in the hikoi. What that tells us, of course, is that this is bigger than just Māori and the Crown, or Māori and non-Māori. It is about our nation as a nation, which has evolved in the last 200 years completely and irrevocably. And so that's the point I really want to make today, is that hikoi and the support of everyone has given us a great deal of hope for our nation, and particularly for our Hutt Valley, which has strong representation of our people, with the marae, with the efforts of Mata Waka, that is all the other Māori who are living within the realms of Hutt City, and of course all the other non-Māori people that we've worked together with. And it draws me back to the Ōhaki of Te Waripori, who signed the deal originally with the New Zealand company on the shores of Pitaoni. And when he died in 1842, and he ensured that we understood that we had to be good to our Māori people, we also had to be good to our European people, who were our partners at that time, who were very aware of the treaty that was signed in Wellington Harbour in 1840 on April 29. This is really, Lauhat Pitaoni is where the nationhood of Aotearoa New Zealand began, and we've continued to make that work. All of us within this room or on TV like I am, really important to understand that we've all worked together to create a better world for our people. And I'm very proud of Aotearoa. And the work that has been done continually to ensure that we do the best that we can collectively for our people. And so I thank you all. You're all leaders sitting around that table. And I acknowledge each and every one of you. And I hope you will do a submission against this bill. I'm very clear that it's destructive, unnecessary, and really doesn't reflect the mood of our people in this country. So I probably don't need to say any more, but thank you for the opportunity, Campbell, to allow me to speak today and to listen to Kara give his submission to you to ask you to work to do this. You've worked hard and agreed to a Māori ward. All of those things are great steps in this country working together and considering our environment, our economy, our culture, and our social obligations. Merry Christmas to you all, and please have a great festive season. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Really appreciate that. Is there any questions for Liz? No. Thank you again, Liz, and same to you. So I hope you have a good break over the festive season.
Thank you, Campbell.
Okay, next up we have Lillian Park, and that is also on the same item. Welcome, Lillian. So you have a total of 3 minutes.
Tēnā koutou katoa. No korea ki tonga me haina me inia o kutipuna. I tipu akea ho ki kānata. Ko nainai toku whatu manoa. I tai mai aho ki Aotearoa I te tō rua mano. I noho ana aho ki te awa kairangi ki tai. Ko Lillian toku ingoa. So my name is Lillian, and I'm here to speak as a resident of Te Awa Kairangi ki tai, or Lower Hutt, on the motion regarding the Treaty Principles Bill. First, I would like to acknowledge Te Tiriti o Waitangi. As I've mentioned many times before, it's the first immigration policy of Aotearoa, New Zealand. It refers to those to come, so us migrants, in the preamble, and it's what enables me and many of us around this table to be here. Without Te Tiriti, we wouldn't be here. So according to the literature, or propaganda, whichever way you'd like to see it, that has been distributed, the proposed Treaty Principles Bill would confirm in law that all New Zealanders have equal rights. When I saw that, I thought, wow, that sounds great, doesn't it? But as my mom always taught me, never judge a book by its cover. Do your research. And if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. So the proposed Treaty Principles Bill is actually using this lovely, warm, and fuzzy equality language to sell you a fairy tale narrative. It distracts you over here, so that in reality, they can further strengthen and ingrain European dominance. The bill strips Tino Rangatiratanga, or Indigenous sovereignty, from Māori, the tangata whenua, the Indigenous people of Aotearoa. So by doing this, it further embeds the British culture and the English language as the culture and the language of Aotearoa. So equality would come through prescribing to the one and only way, the British way of doing things. If this happens, colonialism wins, oppression wins, systemic racism wins. So a couple of months ago, I came here to speak in support of the Māori ward. At the time, I noted that if we do not treat Māori with respect as tangata whenua, migrants and former refugees have little hope of truly belonging here. Now, with the proposed bill, it would de-indigenize Māori from Aotearoa, from its own land. And if it goes through, then we migrants and former refugees have no hope. On a personal note, in my pepeha, I mentioned my whakapapa, or ancestry. So I whakapapa to Korea and to China and to India. So my whānau understands firsthand colonialism, the dominance of another culture and language over our own, the dehumanizing of people, the removal of human rights, and the importance of indigenous sovereignty. As a descendant of peoples who have been subjugated, I can tell you that the proposed bill will not deliver what it promises, and my family knows these broken promises all too well. I acknowledge Māori and how they have genuinely welcomed me into various spaces and places. They have shown me true manaakitanga, respect, equality, and equity. They truly understand equality. So if Māori retain their Indigenous sovereignty, then we non-Māori can acknowledge ourselves as migrants who, through the treaty, are partners with Māori, and as partners, we can truly start working towards genuine equality and equity. So in closing, I ask that Hutt City Council and its councillors oppose the proposed bill. I'll be putting in a submission, and I hope everyone around the table will do so as well.
Thank you, Lillian. Really appreciate your time. Okay, next up we have Keelan Renata from Wainuiomata High School. Welcome, Keelan. Total of 3 minutes, and over to you.
Tēnā tātou katoa, ko Keelan Renata ahau, he riri tēnei no tūhoe no Ngāti Porou, and the list goes on. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm 15 years old. My name is Keelan Renata, and I attend the wharekura at Wainuiomata High School. I'd like to acknowledge Mayor Barry, the councillors, and just a special mihi to whai Kerry Brown as our Wainuiomata Ward Councillor for putting forward this notice of motion. Nei rā te mihi ki a koe whaia. Like the last time I spoke here, I speak to you as a rangatahi of Te Awa Kairangi, as a hashtag, and also as a student of Wainuiomata High School. I sit here in support of this notice of motion because Te Tiriti is our founding document and isn't up for debate. I also understand that the principles of Te Tiriti are key when it comes to partnerships and the mahi of local government. My tipuna signed up to Te Tiriti, which was signed in 1840, not the one-sided interpretation on David Seymour's divisive Treaty Principles Bill paper today. Moving beyond that, as a rangatahi of Te Awa Kairangi, I urge you as our elected representatives to vote in support of this notice of motion, because I am confident that by doing this, we as a city can send a strong message and an effective statement if we collectively lobby against this divisive bill. I've said it once and I'll say it again, rangatahi Māori don't stand for what this government is doing. Te tiriti o Waitangi ki runga te kāwanatanga ki raro.
Kia ora, thank you, Keelan. Next we have Rebecca Elevi. On the same item. Thanks, Rebecca.
Kia ora koutou, esteemed councillors, Mayor Barry. Ko Rebecca Leleave tōku nei ingoa, no tūhoe ahau, no whakatohea hoki. I'm a kaiako at Wainuiomata High School, so I'm coming on behalf of our kura, and I'm also part of Te Tiriti Action Group, who will speak shortly, I'm sure. First point I'd like to make is, although I am tūhoe and tūhoe didn't sign Te Tiriti, Te Tiriti o Waitangi enshrines rights that have always existed. It's not a creation document. What was created was obviously the kāwanatanga aspect of Aotearoa at that time. So rangatiratanga then always existing, but for whānau, for hapu and for iwi. And what this bill is suggesting is that the majority of New Zealanders have the right to decide that rangatira could be ignored, rangatiratanga could be ignored, demonised or buried. And that is not the case. So I think it is important to recognise that when we talk about equal rights, that different worldviews come with different concepts of what rights look like. And as Hannah said, and many others, Eru Kapakingi, for example, they've said rangatiratanga does not impact on non-Māori rights. It doesn't reduce or remove any rights for others. So rangatiratanga comes within the cultural context of Māori as an Indigenous nation, and how we see the whenua, how we see relationships with each other, and how we see our way forward in managing ourselves. Disregarding historical context is extremely dangerous and is a breach of rights. So this bill then proposing to potentially bury, demonise and ignore rangatiratanga sends a message that we no longer care about the breaches that have occurred, the lack of human rights that Māori have experienced over the last 180 years, is it? In terms of sending a message to society, I very much tautoko the council to actually submit in opposition of the Treaty Principles Bill. It sends an important message to society, puts a stake in the ground for the future, for this council, for yourselves, for councils to come, and for the community in regards to upholding rights across the nation. It's sending a message about how what we should teach in kura, what should be included in our curriculum, what worldviews are welcomed and accessible in Aotearoa. In regards to your role as councillors, your role is to serve, and I think it's very important that you do make this stand at this time, and you have a role in educating and particularly in making a moment in history where you've actually made a difference. Yeah. Kia ora koutou. Ngā mihi.
Thank you, Rebecca. Next, we have Linda Olsen. Welcome, Linda, on the same item.
Kia ora tātou katoa. I don't have to introduce myself. Look, I really don't even know why we have to sit around a table and
Just your
wait.
microphone, Linda, is that on?
Oh. Kia ora. I really don't know why we're sitting around talking about our Aotearoa. If you remember, the Poland people, the children that us Māoris let come into our country, our Hamo, our Pacific Islands come into our country, and our all other cultures coming into our country. What are we sitting around backing up someone that doesn't know what he's talking about? I'm talking about David Seymour. You know, it's just so unfair why we have to go through all of this, and what for? Some of our rangatahi really don't accept this. I'm here on behalf of Wainimata Marae and some of our whānau that are affiliated with our marae, and they're really quite angry about it. He's just caused a whole lot of mess in our country. That's what he's done. You know, they talked about the hikoi. Sorry, Koka, forgot to acknowledge the rangatira. Me koe, our rangatai, Kara's already pointed out all the 20 points, but I don't have to. I'm just saying why? You know, it's just so unfair. But anyway, I know there's a lot of our whānau that are putting in submissions, and if we have to, we'll do another march, or we're going to be doing something, because it's just so unfair, because it belongs to us. The treaty belongs to us. Aotearoa belongs to Māori people, and we share it with everybody. And you all know that. You all know that. If you go to Wainimata, every second person is a Māori. It's truth. Come to Te Awakairangi, same thing. But I'm not being racial or anything. I think it's absolutely beautiful sharing our whānau throughout Aotearoa. I think it's beautiful. So don't get me wrong about us being racial. I think it's the other way around. David Seymour's, and I'm just disgusted that he has Māori heritage. Just totally disgusted on David Seymour. Anyway, that's enough of that. Nō reira, tēnā rā koutou katoa.
Kia ora. Thank you, Linda. Michelle Duquette. Welcome, Michelle.
Kia ora koutou. I won't take up too much of your time. I just wanted to be here today to speak for lots of people who can't be here today. dozens of people I know would have loved to be here, but just they couldn't get out of work. So they just want to be here to tautoko earlier speakers. Thank you all for your beautiful words, your articulacy in condemning this Treaty Principles Bill and all it stands for. So just want to support the Council in making a decision to support and oppose, support a submission opposing the Treaty Principles Bill. Kia ora.
Thank you, Michelle. Anadu Ryle.
Ai te koro matua tēnā koe o te rā ki ngā kai kaunihira e noho ana ki ngā tepu, tēnā koutou. Kia korua, e te maraikura, Liz, o te rā kia koe hoki kara, nei rā te mihi, nei rā te mihi, nei rā te mihi. Ko Anuru Rao tōku ingoa, he uri hau no Ngāti Raukawa, and I am one of the organisers of the Tiriti Action Group, a trade unionist and a resident of Wainuiomata. So I sit before you today to support this Council's notice of motion to oppose the Treaty Principles Bill. I speak as a son of a Pākehā whāwa and a Māori mother. I also speak as a whāwa and someone who is deeply committed to the future of our community and especially to the well-being of our tamariki and mokopuna. I have two tamariki. My eldest Zoe is thriving at the wharekura at Wainuiomata High School, and my youngest Tohukai is growing up surrounded by te ao Māori at Upoko Aurunga, Kohanga Reo in Wainuiomata. These spaces are far more than educational institutions. They are whare of identity, connection and pride. They reflect the living promise of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, where our reo, tikanga and mātauranga are not just preserved but celebrated. The Treaty Principles Bill is a direct attack on this promise. By seeking to erase Te Tiriti principles from legislation and public institutions, this bill undermines the foundation of partnership between tangata whenua and the Crown. It sends a message to Māori across this country and to families like mine that our rights, our history, and our future are not valued. At the local level, the impact would be profound. For councils, the removal of treaty principles would diminish the ability to act in genuine partnership with mana whenua. It would strip away obligations to uphold equity and inclusion, creating barriers to collaboration on issues like housing, environmental protection, and education, areas where Māori perspectives are vital to the well-being of the entire community. In Te Awa Kairangi, this bill threatens to divide us at a time when we should be united in kotahitanga. Our community has made significant progress in fostering understanding and partnership between Māori and tangata tiriti. Our journey together has shown how transformative it is when non-Māori actively embrace and support tikanga and reo. My Pākehā whāwa, for example, speaks te reo to his mokos and has always encouraged me and my brother to hold tight to our Māoritanga. These are the values that make Te Awa Kairangi so strong: mutual respect, inclusion, and the recognition of our shared history. This bill risks undoing that progress. It would marginalise Māori voices and strip away the protections that ensure we have a seat at the table. It would deepen mistrust between Māori and government institutions and discourage initiatives like Māori wards, which this council has shown courage in upholding, despite a referendum being shoved down our throats by this government. I urge this council to stand firm in opposing the bill, not just for Māori, but for the future of a community where all of us, tangata whenua and tangata tiriti, can thrive together. Let this council send the clear message to Parliament: Te Tiriti is not just the historic document, it is a living covenant that shapes our nation's future. Ma Te Tiriti, ka ora ai te motu. By upholding Te Tiriti, everyone will flourish. Thank you, Hutt City Council, for making this stand today. I hope other councils follow suit. Keep leading the way.
Thank you, Anadu. Wayne Pucker on the same item.
Tēnā tēnā tātou katoa, tēnā koe Campbell, tēnā koutou ngā mema o keiru, i noho ana keirungu tēnei tepu, me ana kia koutou, me ana ki ngā manawa whenua hoki, tēnā kōroa, Liz Koroko, Kara, tēnā tātou katoa. I sit here today as an active member in our community. I was one of the very first bilingual trained teachers, actually the very first bilingual trained teacher in New Zealand. And 3 months after attending courses at Akupai, I was frustrated, returned home and had a bit of a go at my parents. And I was frustrated because both my parents, Te Reo Māori was their first language, and the only time we heard it growing up was when they didn't want us to know what they were talking about. After having my 5 cents worth, my dad said to my mum, well, didn't you tell him? And my mum said to my dad, oh, I thought you told him. And then my dad says, oh, it was time we had a talk. My dad, when he was 9 years old, was walking to school. Across the way were 2 other of his classmates. His uncle rode past and said, "Morena boy," and Dad replied in kind, said, "Morena uncle." His 2 schoolmates ran to school, told the principal, and when Dad arrived, he had to stand before the school, bend over, touch his toes, and he was given the cane. Unfortunately, the cane caught him around his testicles 10 times. Dad was unable to operate for the rest of the day. He was the hunter fisherman, the hunter-gatherer for the whānau, and he told his siblings to return home because he couldn't make it in the usual time frame. When he got there, my grandfather was very frustrated. The next day, my grandfather took his rifle down to the school to engage the principal and ended up being arrested for 3 months. He was in jail. My father then had to leave school to feed the whānau because he had to get a job because there was no income because my grandfather was in prison. Sitting there for 2 minutes after hearing the story, I was quite traumatised. And then my dad says, "Oh, but you should hear what happened to your mum." I sat there thinking, what could be worse than that? My mum was the only fluent speaker of Te Reo Māori amongst her cousins. So at school, none of them could speak English. For females in those days, you weren't allowed to get the cane. You were allowed to get the strap on the hand. But for speaking Te Reo Māori at school, the punishment was a lot more severe. For young females, they used to put their head in the desk and slam the desk on the back of the head 10 times. And you could receive that punishment 3 times a day. So that happened to my mum 30 times a day, 5 days a week, mostly for the first 2 years of her life. And so after hearing these 2 stories, I realised the impact this had on their generation, my generation. I'm the youngest of 11 children. My eldest 2 siblings are Erana and Marama. Upon their birth, Mum named them, and my dad turned up to the hospital after the fact. My dad hit the roof because my mother had given both my siblings Māori names. He forbade my mother to give the rest of us Māori names. In my time in the last few years of my mum's life, I found out she'd given me a Māori name, which was Tipi Te Whenua, walk the earth. But she never put up my birth certificate, so that's now a name that I acknowledge. I could go on a lot more, but one of the things that I've realised is that the trauma of having a lot of our rights, language and culture taken away has had a generational effect where whole generations haven't had their reo, haven't had their tikanga, and that's dribbled down through the generations. We've now got to a point where education and the revitalisation of our reo has become a point. The quality of my reo when I was a school teacher wasn't at the level that I wish it would have been, and some of my students Actually, when they were students of mine at the time as secondary school students, had surpassed mine. To name one of them, and that's Mātou Rangatarona, who's now currently a school teacher on Wainyamata. What I'd like to acknowledge is the councillors who have moved this motion, seconded it, and actually brought it to the table so it can be discussed. And as a community, we look at the Treaty of Principles Bill and oppose it. Tēnā tātou.
Okay. Final speaker, Dina Aora. Welcome, Dina.
Kia ora tātou katoa, ko Dina Aora tōku ingoa, nō Ngāti Porou ahau. I just want to acknowledge the previous speakers and my whanaunga Wayne just telling the story of a whole lot of our whānau back in those days. That was very emotional for me because I can reminisce with those stories. I'm here on behalf of Hutt Union Health. I'm the manager there. As you may know, or you may not know, that we service the most vulnerable communities in the Hutt Valley. And we are committed to equity, justice, and upholding the Treaty of Waitangi. So we are in strong opposition of the proposed principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill, which will diminish our role in fostering equitable and meaningful partnerships and care for our whānau. The impacts this will have on health equity. So the health system's ongoing reforms have embraced Tiriti principles to address the glaring disparities faced by Māori. These include increasing Māori representation in decision-making, prioritising resources to address systemic inequities, and embedding culturally competent practices. For us as a union health service, where many of our patients are Māori, our Māori communities would be more vulnerable to poor health outcomes. In the Hutt Valley, there's a significant proportion of populations who identify as Māori, so this would be devastating. Implications for our high needs community who we service as well. So as a health provider, Hutt Union Health witnesses the daily compounded disadvantages faced by our whānau, and especially for Māori due to historical and systemic marginalisation. So any move to reduce the treaty's principles would erode trust, so our Māori communities who already face barriers to accessing healthcare, that would probably turn them away even more, and we do have lots with complex health issues that we struggle to get in as it is, so it would also deepen the inequity, so the absence of the treaty guarded protections would widen the health and socioeconomic gaps and undermine progress. So our current efforts to address inequities such as Kaupapa Māori health initiatives rely on the treaty-based frameworks. So I just want to say in conclusion that Hutt Union Health strongly opposes the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill. These principles would disregard the historical and ongoing impacts of colonisation and undermine our efforts towards equity and justice. So, I mean, as councillors in Te Awa Kairangi, I know you care about the health and well-being of our people like we do, so we encourage you to oppose this bill. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora, thank you, Dina. And thank you to all of the members of the public who have spoken so articulately today on this particular issue. And we will now quickly move into the agenda, and I do intend on bringing this particular motion forward so that can be debated first off the bat. So we do have, actually we've got, actually I will do that after. So we've got conflict of interest declarations. So any conflicts to declare? Councillor Edwards and Councillor Dyer.
Yes, given that there's a hearing, a DLC hearing next week on the Juicy Fest declare an interest, or it's better that I don't take part in item 7B, the temporary alcohol-free zone in that part of the city.
Councillor Dye?
Yep, also a member on that hearing, 7B.
That was... Okay, so in accordance with Standing Order 10.4, I call precedence of business to item 7A, the notice of motion by Councillor Brown, submission opposing the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill, currently before Parliament. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Briggs, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against, no. I declare that carried. So that now takes us to item 7A, and I'm happy to pass it over to Councillor Brown to make any comments to her motion before we then move it, second it, debate it. Councillor Brown.
Tēnā tātou katoa I ngā mana whenua, Liz Rau ko Kara, me mana whenua, tēnā kōrua. I ngā mana hiri, I roto I te rima I tēnei rā, tēnā koutou. Kia ora everybody. I first wish to really acknowledge the speakers that have come today and shared your stories and the depth of your experience and understanding of the situation that we're in today. So I just really want to acknowledge you and thank you for coming. I also acknowledge Jeff Hayward, who is in Porirua, who's doing similar mahi in this area. I put forward this notice of motion today to Hutt City Council to declare our strong oppositions to this bill for the reasons of the Te Tiriti underpins all of our work and is the basis of our partnership and our relationship with mana whenua and the tākai here. And without Te Tiriti and the principles, we do not have that work that we can work in our Aotearoa space and local government. As New Zealanders, we have many values we live by, and Te Tiriti is a strong tenet of who we are and who we belong to. Te Tiriti was built on belonging and trust and is an international agreement that is an exchange of promises. It's between two peoples and two different worldviews, and they brought together the Te Tiriti so that we could, in our two worldviews, live side by side and have tino rangatira over our own worldview as we lived together. And this did happen for a period of time and was undermined and living within that concept of two worldviews. And that went on for quite a while. There was even a group that was known as settlers would come and strongly learned the culture, and there was even a concept of Pākehā Māori, and there was even taonga where some were gifted a moko. It would not happen now, but in those days that was the strength of the two worlds living together. However, as we know, tragically, promises were not met and not kept, and one worldview, and that was the Crown, wanted to become the dominant one and change that worldviews living together and one taking over the other and taking out that second worldview, which meant, consequently meant land confiscation, dispossession, violence and violence after violence. And I call violence after violence is after all of that, the removal of our reo, the dispossession of who we were, the attacks on our people for wanting to try and hang on to the last vestiges of that worldview that we lived in. So it was either one of two things which happened to many Indigenous around the world. It was either assimilate or disappear. And in some places they disappeared. It's understandable in this long history that we are struggling now to have a good conversation about this. And we're struggling because of the intentional amnesia, the strategy of amnesia of not teaching this history, these worldviews in our education system. So I completely understand when people are really struggling to have a good conversation, and this bill stands on that principle that many of us are struggling to keep up with the tenets of what this conversation really means. So hence it's really hard to have an in-depth conversation about our history, the true depth of our history, the place of Te Tiriti, and a visionary visionary way forward with Te Tiriti alongside our two groups. And I give an example for local government, land and water. One world view is a hierarchical view of an owner, manager and a resource, meaning human, land, commodity. In Te Ao view, it's Indigenous, and this is a view across Indigenous across the world. It's a living being. The land and the water is a living being. She's a mother, and we as humans are here as her child, as her visitor, to care for that land and care for that water while we are here, so that our future generations get to experience what we have, and we have cared for that land and the water. That water and that land has mana, and it has mauri, and it uplifts the mauri. Yet, we've degraded our soil, we've poisoned our waters, and we're paying for that now. And that we could have stepped aside from this if our two worldviews were standing side by side in Te Tiriti, not one on top of the other. We have, in New Zealand, we've got over 1,900 treaties. This is the only treaty, this is the only contract that's been attacked of all of them. And this is the one that constantly through history gets attacked. And each and every time we have to resist. The principles, while it's been downplayed, the principles gives legal effect to Te Tiriti. There's Te Tiriti, there's the law, and that thread across it is the principles. Without that thread across it, we don't have Te Tiriti as it stands today. So it is a very crucial area. Another train of thought is that this bill won't go past first reading, but the damage is being done. And I understand that if it doesn't go through, organisations already started for a citizens' referendum, which only requires 10% of the population to agree for this to continue. So the importance of this can't be understating. And today we're not even talking about, this is not on the table talking about what's happened already. The removal of our reo in schools, the removal of our reo in our public institutions, the removal of Te Tiriti in important documents like how we care for our tamariki and oranga tamariki and the Māori wards. That's not even what we're talking about. So we've already lost a lot, but we realise this is the most important thing that we need to hold on to. So through history, each time we resist, and we're at that place right now. But this time it's different. This time we're resisting with our people, with our tangata reti, with our diverse community standing beside us and alongside us. And that is a really big difference. And I can't understate the importance of our community together resisting at this time. So the reason for this, this declaration is to call to action. Many of us were in the hikoi, many of us support this. We adore and we cherish our own sense of identity in Aotearoa, be it through manu, how we treat manuhiri, the concepts of whānau, whare, our grieving process, those concepts of grieving, the haka, even though we've all seen it be a bit cringe overseas, it shows that that's our identity that we hang on to. That is the concepts of kai and other parts. We hang on to them, and many of us now, not just Māori, but all of us, we hang on to engaging in te ao Māori and those parts. But the final and most important piece is a submission. This is the final part that we need people to do to move forward and get over, as Kara rightly put, this blip in our history. But this part of our history is going to be like history in the past. We will remember what we did at this time and the important taonga, if we do a submission, of submitting to government that this is not wanted and that the resistance says that this is such an injustice that we're facing now. And our ancestors fought so hard in our history to hang on to tiriti. Not the first time it's been attacked, and sadly it may not be the last, but we can all play our part in this last part. And I just want to finish and say on a positive note, the framework for, and it's been talked about before, but the framework for belonging is within Te Tiriti, and we are all walking down that track. This is not where we're standing, and I note from Keelan talking about the rangatahi, it is a different world coming through, but this place and time now is important. So thank you everybody, and kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor Brown. So I do have it moved from Councillor Brown. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tupou? Okay, so is there any further comment? Councillor Tupou.
Kia ora, thank you, Your Worship. This call to action is a follow-up from the hikoi, as Kerry mentioned, in which many members of Te Awa Kairangi took part, both tangata whenua and tangata tiriti. As we all know, a minor party in Parliament has instigated a divisive bill to reshape and redefine the long-held understanding of te tiriti o Waitangi. Safeguards against discrimination are already in existing legislation, the Human Rights Act, the Bill of Rights Act. And I think, Mr. Mayor, that there's confusion between rights and privilege. We heard from Dina, from the health sector. It's not a privilege to be at the bottom of the statistics of health. It's not a privilege to be at the bottom of the statistics of the prison system. Mr. Mayor, this is a waste of time, money, and public resources. There has been no consultation with iwi authorities, as we've heard from Mana Whenua, from Kara, from Liz, or local government over the time-wasting debacle that this is. Mr. Mayor, the Treaty of Waitangi principles and both the English and Te Reo versions of Te Tiriti are in our Local Government Act 2002. Local government, as you are well aware as Vice President, we haven't had time. We haven't had time to work through the consequences of such a bill. We know it's not going to get past the line, as Mr. Luxon has guaranteed. But we haven't had time, and this is, Mr. Mayor, I think, disingenuous. It's not operating in good faith in terms of the partnership between the Crown and tangata whenua. And so, Mr. Mayor, I support wholeheartedly alongside colleagues. I hope we can support Councillor Brown's motion unanimously, Mr. Mayor, and I think this really follows on and cements the work that we did on the Māori ward, because this, as I said at the time in the community, we should have started with this debate first before going into the Māori ward. This is not the time, and it's really not the way to initiate a constitutional review, and it's done very much from a negative standpoint rather than a positive relational standpoint, Mr. Mayor. So I support wholeheartedly this motion to kaunihira o Te Awa Kairangi ki tai. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barrett, then Councillor Shaw.
Kia ora, Mr. Mayor. I speak as...
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor, I speak as head of my whānau with a mixed Māori and Pākehā in my own personal whānau. Kara's words hit home to me this afternoon when he said there is a wee bit of a blip, a bit of amnesia by some people. It is very easy to forget when it suits the needs of some, particularly some people in power. What the hikoi has shown, it is not the needs of those over 100,000 people who respect how Aotearoa New Zealand was founded and how we want to continue. It is my thought that this bill is dangerous for our people, and it will further divide if it goes ahead, and I'm not happy with that. I have had emails from friends and family over the world disturbed by what they are hearing. We are known further than our little country for our partnerships, and by knowing that a simple vote that all of this can be taken from us. So as a council, we need to stand strong and we need to stand proud in what we believe in. What people possibly don't know is that this hikoi went further than our country. It was displayed and acted upon in other countries all over the world. So our pain is felt not just here, but it is felt further afield than our airports or our airspace can even imagine. What Councillor Brown has done today is put forward a notice of motion that was brave and courageous, and I applaud her for that. So I thank you. Kia ora.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Shaw.
Kia ora. And today we've heard highly esteemed and respected speakers implore us to respect the original intent of Te Tiriti o Te Waitangi. My father was English, mum was Ngāti Kahununu ki Te Wairua, and I am the middle of six siblings, 6 children. My mother suffered similar trauma that, like Wayne's Paka story, was kept hidden from us, so I feel your mai, Wayne. It's only recently, since my time on council, have I truly understood the background of Te Tiriti and its intent to bring people together. The Treaty Principles Bill serves to divide us. The coalition government have undermined the intent of Te Tiriti and acted in a scurrilous way to sell their fairy tale. Linda Olsen spoke about how damn unfair it is, and so it is. We are governors of Te Awa Kairangi ki Tai, and we have a role to support our people in one of the earliest destinations of colonisation. Yes, I will be submitting to Parliament in January along with my wider whānau, but today I support the notice of motion of opposition to the Treaty Principles Bill, and I want a clear message sent by our council today. I also thank Councillor Kerry Brown for bringing this motion to us today. Kia ora.
Councillor Morgan.
Kia ora koutou. I would just like to also acknowledge our incredible speakers today. Nā mahi kia koutou, I tautoko au tō whakaro me te kōrero. Your words are so powerful and so meaningful, and we all need to listen so clearly to what has been said today. And I also acknowledge you, Councillor Brown, for your courage and your leadership. It is phenomenal, and I'm glad and proud to stand alongside you with this mahi. I will be supporting this notice of motion to oppose Te Tiriti Principles Bill. I'm appalled at the polarising and divisive actions and decisions of our coalition government. But what we can't underestimate is the power of the people, and together we can make wrongs right. Together we must stand united and say no, and this is one of those opportunities to do this. I will be putting in a submission. We as a council will be putting in a submission so that our collective voices can be heard to show that we clearly do not support this bill. So to all of you, kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawanui, let us show the strength of what kotahitanga can look like. Toi tū te tiriti, ngā mihi kia koutou. Thank you.
Okay, now we have had over 4 speakers in favour of the motion. Is there any speakers who wish to speak against the notice of motion? Okay, I know there were a couple of other hands that wanted to go up. If there was, say, maybe a minute, because we just do have quite a large agenda, but if there was any particular comments that hadn't been covered, I don't want to cut things off. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor Barry. And being very clear, I'm speaking in support of the notice of motion. For me, colleagues, my youngest daughter turns 5 next month. When I was at the same age, my mother asked me, what do I want to do? Do I want to learn 1 language or 2? The opportunity to go into a bilingual unit at Kura in Te Tahi Bay. And for me, that was life-changing. The fact that, one, my mum gave a 5-year-old the opportunity to advocate for themselves and choose their own path, but then also to be embraced in Te Ao Māori from a young age. And most of my peers at my age didn't have that opportunity. That wasn't the norm back then. But it's great to see change. And in my 5-year-old, speaking te reo Māori is normalised, learning about her own identity and who she is in the context of Wainuiomata of Te Awa Kairangi ki Tai in an Aotearoa is normalised. We're at an age and stage and a place for our communities where we can choose what normal looks like. We can choose to buy into the nastiness, the racism, the traumatic, harmful, intentional behaviour of this current government and this bill which they're putting before the House. Or we can choose behaviours that are normalising kotahitanga, manakitanga, aroha, peacefulness, acceptedness, diversity. That is our choice. Today, this is us taking a stance as a city. What do we choose as normal in our place for our people? Thank you, Councillor Brown, for putting this forward, this opportunity for us to reflect, to make a decision, to provide direction and show leadership alongside our people, for our people.
Point of order or just clarification? Your worship, I think I've just heard a few members express an interest in making a joint submission. Now, is this something that's is being encouraged? Are we looking at a consequential here, or is that something that as individuals?
I can cover that off once we've covered these motions. Yep. So is any other member who wishes to speak? Happy? Okay. Thank you. Just to make a couple of very brief comments, I would agree that it is so important that we reject this treaty principles bill as strongly as possible, be that through hikoi, be that through submissions, be that through us as a council and as leaders of Te Awa Kairangi ki Tai. Councillor Brown made the excellent point that after this, even though there's a commitment that it will be rejected after the first reading, that there is the risk of a citizens-initiated referendum and all of the potential pain and division that that may bring. But also I've heard this from National Party people that, well, what if the government, a future government after an election was put in a position with their partners, how far would they go next time to be in the halls of power? So I think the stance and the strength of our opposition is so important as a country in rejecting this entirely and completely. I just want to acknowledge all of the submitters. Again, Wayne, thank you so much for sharing your kōrero today, incredibly powerful. And I was watching around the room and I think what I could tell from people's response was that your stories reflected a number of others' stories and it was very powerful of you to share that with us today, so thank you. But also to Liz and to Kara for your comments, for your support and guidance for us as a council. We really do appreciate that. The final acknowledgement is just to the organisers, who we have a few here today, whether that be with the hikoi or the organising that will go on over the coming months, probably years. It's actually your work that is going to make the difference on how staunchly and how strongly we oppose this treaty principles bill as a nation. So I just want to acknowledge you, and we're fortunate to have a number of you based here in our city, so we support and stand alongside you. So on that, I will put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. I declare that carried unanimously. Consequential recommendation. So I'd just like to move that a joint submission of the council be prepared, led by Councillor Brown, and that will then be submitted prior to the deadline, I believe, of 7th of January. So I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Barrett, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. I declare that carried. We will take it offline logistically how that will work, but we'll obviously make sure that everyone's got a chance to see that and feed in or participate as much as you would like. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So I did have my mayoral statement, but I'm going to save it for the 16th. Okay, so because we've got a few items to get through, so I'm going to hold that one for a following meeting, if that's okay.
Tātou whaia te mana matanga.
Thanks, everyone. Okay, so we're going to move through to item 6, which is committee minutes with recommended items. We have the traffic subcommittee from the 7th of November. So I'd like to invite Councillor Shaw to move the adoption of the balance of the minutes.
I'd like to move that the Komiti Arawaka Traffic Subcommittee minutes from the meeting held on the 7th of November 2024 be adopted with the exception of items 4A to 80.
Thank you. So I'll have a seconder. Councillor Dyer, any discussion? Those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Now, are we happy to take all of the traffic items as one rather than go through them individually? Yep. So Councillor Shaw, if you're happy to move those.
I'd like to move them all in block.
Perfect. So that's items 4A to
4A to
80. Yep. Seconder, Councillor Dyer. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against no. I declare that carried. Moving through to item B, which is the Infrastructure and Regulatory Committee from the 18th of November, page 27. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. I move that the minutes of the Komiti Hanganga Infrastructure and Regulatory Committee held on 18 November 2024 be adopted with the exceptions of items 2A to 4C.
Seconder, Councillor Stallinger. Any discussion? Those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Item 2A.
Item 5A is the Kiwi Rail acquisition of land for a substation, which is necessary for our rail transport. Happy to move.
Okay. Seconder, Councillor Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. And we'll move to item 3B.
3B is the hearing subcommittee recommendations on the local alcohol policy review, with the major finding that we will bring forward the next review in 3 years' time rather than usual 5.
So that's been moved. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Lewis, any discussion? Those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Item 4C.
That's the hearing subcommittee recommendation for the alcohol fees bylaw review. And we set it at 90%, believing there's a 10% public benefit from that system.
Seconder? Seconded by Councillor Stallinger. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Item C, which is the Policy, Finance and Strategy Committee from the 20th of November. Councillor Mitchell.
I move that the minutes of the Komiti Ratonga Rangatopu me te Rautaki, the Policy, Finance and Strategy Committee meeting held on the 20th of November 2024 be adopted with the exception of item 6A.
I have a seconder. Councillor Morgan, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Item 6A.
And item 6A is the design version of the parking strategy and engagement results.
That's been moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Edwards, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay, move through the Audit and Risk Subcommittee from the 26th of November. So I'll move the adoption of the minutes from that meeting. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Dyer, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay. Is your mic on, Brady? Is that? Oh, so we've just got item 5, which is just the overview of artificial intelligence at Council. And this is on page 79. Any comfortable with those recommendations? So I'll move those. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morgan, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. This time, District Plan Review Committee, Councillor Dyer.
I'd like to move that the minutes of the Komiti Arataki Mahiri Rohi District Plan Review Committee held on the 14th of November 2024 be adopted with the exception of items 5.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mitchell. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Item 5.
I'd like to move item number 5, the Draft Sustainability Growth Strategy for 2025 to 2055 for community engagement on page 86.
Yep, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lewis. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Just for full council, Councillor Dyer, do you just want to describe the process now with the district plan, just for all members, just in regards to, in a very brief?
On the district plan or on the growth strategy? Yep, it's a district plan. We had our meeting last week where full council signed off the district plan. Between now and February, we'll be just finalising some typos or any wordings within that, and then from February they'll be open for consultation under the RMA process, noting that it'll come back to us at the very end of that process, but it's kind of out of council's hands now, and we will wait and see what comes back from the independent commissioners in due course.
Yep. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. So through the process, the key thing is we have that independent commissioners who will hear the submissions, but we have the absolute final accept or reject decision. Anyway, okay. So thank you, Councillor Dyer. So moving through to miscellaneous items, we have covered 7A. We have 7B, which is application for a temporary alcohol-free zone in Moida in Seaview for Juicy Fest. This is on page 185 of the agenda, and we obviously have noted Councillor Edwards and Councillor Dyer's conflicts earlier, and they've left the table. Dean, you're going to speak to this one? Or I had Richard down, or is it Dean, but you're going to cover it? Yep, great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an application for a temporary alcohol-free zone in South Moera and parts of Seaview and Gracefield for the Juicy Fest Music Festival to be held at Hutt Park, January 10th, 2025. Juicy Fest is a R18 one-day R&B and hip-hop music festival. It's expected to bring 10,000 people to Hutt Park. The police are seeking an alcohol-free zone for a 24-hour period commencing 7 a.m. January 10th, concluding 7 a.m. January 11th, 2025. Based on the experience when attending the event earlier this year, this will assist the police in dealing with antisocial behaviour and making our community safe. It will allow them to act on persons drinking outside the venue. We've assessed this request from the police, and we ask Council to approve this alcohol-free zone application.
Thanks, Dean. I think that's pretty clear. So I'm happy to move the recommendations in front of us, just to approve it. Question? Okay, Councillor Mitchell.
Sorry, yeah, just a question. Thank you. Under the risks, it talks about a risk that people may not know that the temporary alcohol ban is in place. When police came and talked about our permanent alcohol bans, they said there was a risk people wouldn't know they're in place because of the lack of signage or poor signage. The paper here talks about issuing a public notice and providing information through Council's website and social media channels. Just thinking of a big event like this where some people, the target audience may not be great readers of public notices, or people may be visiting from outside of town and not follow our Council's social media channels. What will there be in terms of on-the-ground signage and information to let people know that this is the time and this is the place and you cannot bring alcohol past a particular point?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. In speaking with Dean Bentley, we've agreed that we'll be putting signage up on street posts in the neighbourhood, and this will be done 14 days out. And I think this will give everyone something that can be referred to, certainly for time leading up to it and perhaps at the time.
Okay. So I've moved the recommendation, seconded by Councillor Briggs. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. I declare that carried. Item C, which is the proposed removal of the trial cycle lane road markings on Knights Road. It's on page 195 of the agenda, and we have Paul Hewitt and John Kingsbury to speak to this item. Paul, I'll pass it over to you. Any comments you'd like to make?
Thank you, Mayor. This paper is seeking approval for the removal of the trial cycleway on Knights Road between Waterloo Station and Willoughby Street. This has been to council before, and at that point in time it was proposed to retain the trial cycleway until the resurfacing of Knights Road, which was proposed at the time to be in 2029. That took consideration of the date of the proposed chip sealing, earlier progression of Riverlink and micromobility funding being available in the 24 to 27 NLTP to enable the revised Waterloo Station to City cycleway to be implemented. Obviously, it's a different world at the moment, and not all that has come to fruition. And we've also had an assessment of Knights Road undertaken, as we do for a lot of the roads, ahead of the surfacing seasons, and that has recommended that we do get on with the chip sealing of Knights Road in the current chip sealing season, and that is proposed for February 2025. As part of that, obviously the allowance is to reinstate the road markings to the pre-cycleway layout for Knights Road. If the cycleway markings with the green paint and everything were to be reinstated, there'd be an additional cost of around $70,000 to reinstate that road marking. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Any questions? Councillor Shaw.
Thanks, Paul. I noticed there was quite a bit of consultation undertaken when the lines were put in. Is similarly going to be happening for the lines to be taken away? Because I know it's quite controversial at that time, so we got all bases covered in this instance.
From the previous consultation, a notice had been sent out to say, subsequent to the consultation that had been done, that the cycleway was going to be removed following the chip sealing.
Any other questions, Councillor Parkin?
How's this going to affect our KPI in terms of cycleways?
Through you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor. So it will obviously take away a shared path, some length of shared path. But again, as Paul's noted, because of the funding that wasn't available for Waterloo to CBD and the condition of this road, we feel that this is the right outcome to be able to take this out now, taking into account costs as well. We also will have, though, 5 more bays coming on board from Te Pura-Horoneku, 2 in the next 8 weeks, and then another 3 before June 2026, as well as a number throughout Riverlink as well.
Just to clarify, John, a temporary cycleway is included in our sort of cycle network anyway. I didn't believe it was, but
through you, Chair. So this was a bit more than temporary, I think. As far as I'm aware, they were included, but I do need to clarify that and can come back.
We can, yep, take that back. Okay. Any other questions, Councillor Dyer?
Yeah, just wanted to clarify the comms question from Councillor Shaw. October 2023, when we made the decision to keep it a lot longer, officers said we would send out letters to say, hey, this is now going to be in place for a lot longer. Have we, or are we going to send out new letters saying actually now that's coming right forward, or have we already done that?
A letter had gone out previously noting that the cycleway is going to be removed following the chip sealing.
Was saying when Waterloo was done a few years away was the last decision we made, and a letter was sent then saying Knights Road will be there till Waterloo's done. That was October 2023. Has there been a new letter since then saying it'll be happening over the summer?
Well, we were making a decision today, so a new letter couldn't have gone out.
That's why I'm clarifying.
Yep. So the question is, will there be a letter that goes out post this decision?
We'll send a letter out, yes, and normal notifications of chip sealing as well.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? No. So I'm going to move the recommendations that are in front of us, which is 1 through to 5, which is agreeing to remove the trial cycleway on Knights Road and approve the reinstatement of road markings to the pre-cycleway configuration. Seconder, Councillor Barrett. Any discussion? Councillor Barrett.
There's going to be a lot of happy people. I'm so thrilled to see this report and I do acknowledge the work and the effort behind it. And I apologise, John, for being a thorn in your side about this. It's taken a long time. This has been a bone of contention with residents on Knights Road due to safety issues visibility, etc. So they will be so thrilled to hear this is going ahead.
Any other comments? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Moving through to 7D, which is the local government 4-monthly report. If there is any questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer them. Just don't grill me like Whanganui District Council did earlier today. So, zoomed in. No, they were good. If there's no questions, we just note the paper. Happy? Okay, so I'll move that we receive and note the 4-monthly report. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Morgan. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Item 8, which is minutes. So are there any matters of correctness to the minutes that members wish to discuss individually in all the minutes we've got here? Just otherwise we'll do it as a block. No? Okay, so I'll move that the council minutes of the 1st of October, 29th of October and 20th of November be confirmed as true and correct. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Tupou, any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Item 9, committee minutes without recommended items. So I will do the same again if we're happy with those minutes as a block rather than individually. Yep. Okay. So I will move that the minutes of the Hutt Valley Services Committee, Wellington Water Committee, and minutes of the Audit and Risk Subcommittee, Policy, Finance and Strategy Committee, Climate Change and Sustainability Committee, Culture and Partnerships Committee meetings, items 9A through to F be adopted. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mitchell. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. I declare that carried. Making sure we haven't missed anything. Okay. Sealing Authority, page 343. So I'll move the recommendations 1 through to 3. Do I have a seconder? Deputy Mayor Lewis. Any discussion? All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Questions? I've received no questions. So we'll now move to exclusion of the public, which is items 13, 14 and 15. And that Andrew Howie, Independent Strategic Advisor, be permitted to remain after the public section of the meeting for item 13. So I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Briggs. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Okay, so I declare the public part of the meeting